We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin and Meseches Beitzah. This is Beitzah Daf 27b. The Gemara is continuing to explain Rabbi Ami's practice in terms of inspecting mumin on a bechor. That's Rabbi Ami, right? We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin and Meseches Beitzah. This is Beitzah Daf 27b. The Gemara is continuing to explain Rabbi Ami's practice in terms of inspecting a bechor for a mum on Yontiv. It says that really Rabbi Ami would do the inspection from before Yontiv. Uvi Yontiv shiyule kameshayil hechi havuvda. And then on Yontiv, Rabbi Ami would ask exactly what happened. Rashi over here says, Uvi Yontiv shiyule kameshayil pa'amim shayatar berev Yontiv. Sometimes Rabbi Ami was busy on Erev Yontiv. Umisharo hamumin. So after he looked at the mum, Omer lo lech achshav v'alamachar. You tell the guy, go now, come back tomorrow. V'yashoa lo alamum. And then the next day, would ask him about the mum. Eich bolo. How did the mum happen? Because there was a different issue. There was an issue that the Kohanim, they were suspect by Bechor, that they would put the mum there on purpose. Kiritanan kol hamumin haruuyim lavo bidayadam roe Yisrael nemonim roe Kohanim ein nemonim. The shepherds were Kohanim. They were not trusted when it came to this issue. V'tzarich lavi edim shemei elav bolo. So the person would need to bring witnesses that the mum happened on its own, that the person didn't purposely put the mum on the Bechor in order to be able to do the shechita. So that's what it means. Rabbi Ami didn't actually do the inspection on Yontiv. He just asked the details of how the mum occurred. Hechi hava uvda. What exactly happens? Ki hadahu gavra da'isi buchar l'kami d'Rava. It's similar to a story where a particular person who was a Kohen, he brought a Bechor to Rava. Apanya demala yom tova. So again, it was the afternoon on Erev Yontiv. So have a Yosef Rava v'kachayif reshe. So Rava was sitting and he was rubbing his head. In other words, he was cleaning his head, preparing for Yontiv. So Doli eine v'chazi l'muma. So he lifted up his eyes and he looked at the mum. He did the inspection. And then Amar le. Then he said to him, Zil ha'idna v'salamachar. Go for now. Come back tomorrow. We'll ask more shilas. We'll ask you more questions about this mum. So Kiyas Alamachar, when he came the next day, Amar, he said to him, Hechi Aviyavda, what exactly happened over here? How did this animal get a blemish? And so the Gemara continues, Amar Le, the Kohen said back to Rava, have a shadyon sare bahach gisa dehutza. There was some barley that was scattered on the other side of the hutza. The hutza was like a thorn fence. V'havi'iu b'idach gisa, and the animal was on the other side, the bechor. Bahade, deboy lemechel ayil reishe uparte hutza l'sfuse. He said, so while the animal wanted to eat the barley, he stuck his head out, and then the thorns that cut the animal's lips. That's how the mum developed. So Amar Le, so he said to him, Dilma at koramtle, maybe you're the one that caused it. Maybe you purposely put the barley there and you purposely had it that the animal should get a mum. So Amar Le lo, so he said, no, that's not what happened. This happened totally by accident. And the Gemara says, Umunot tamer de grama aser. But how do you even know that grama is aser? Maybe just causing indirectly that the animal gets a mum. Maybe that's not a problem. And the Gemara says Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, mum lo yia bo. It says a mum cannot be there, meaning ainli elish lo yia bo mum. I only know that it can't have a mum. Minayin shelo yigrom lo al yedei davar acher. How do you know that it can't be caused through something else? As Rashi over here says, Hachi garsinon mum lo yeh bo ein lielo ikasav mum velo kasav kol. Let's say it said the word mum, but it wouldn't say the word kol. So then lo haya lo les or grama. Then grama would not be aser. Ela nesinas mum mamish. The only thing that would be aser would be when you have a situation where the person actually makes a mum directly. Aval achsha, but now omar mum, it says mum les or nesinas mum mamish. The word mum means the actual making of a mum. V'omar kol mum, and it says kol mum les or grama, to say that even grama is aser. So that's what the Bryce is saying over here. The Bryce is saying that the word kol comes to teach you that even grama, even causing the mum, is going to be aser. As the Gemara explains, Shelo Yavi Botzek or Devela, the person shouldn't bring, let's say, dough or a pressed fig. V'yaniach lo agabi ha'ozen, maybe he's going to put it by the ear of the animal. Kedei sheyavu akela v'yitlenu. That way the dog will come, he'll take the food, and also bite the ear of the animal. In other words, you're indirectly causing a mum. How do I know that's forbidden as well? Talmud lomar kol mum. The pasuk says not only to say mum, it says kol mum. Omar mum v'yomar kol mum, like Rashi explained earlier. It says mum, it says kol mum. Comes to say not only is it usher to directly create the mum, it's also usher to do it through grama. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Behemo shemesa. Let's say you have a situation of an animal that dies on Yontiv, lo yizizena mimakom. It shouldn't be moved from its place. Umaisa v'shalos Rabbi Tarfon Allah. There was a Maisa where they asked Rabbi Tarfon about this. V'ala chala shenitmei. So they also asked him, let's say you have a case of chala that became tamei. V'nichnas lebeis hamedrash. V'shal entered the beis medrash and he asked. V'yamru lo. They said to him, lo yizizem mimakom. Those two items, again, the animal that dies or the chala shenitmei, cannot be moved from their place. And Rashi over here says, Chalosh and Nitmes Eino Ru'uya L'Kohen Hayom. when it comes to challah that becomes tamei, the Kohen can't use it for anything on that particular day on Yontiv. Because first of all, when it comes to eating it, challah that becomes tamei, it's usher to eat it forever. It's a problem of, again, it's just the same thing as truma that becomes tamei, can't be eaten. And now when it comes to burning it, or maybe you want to give it to his dog on Yontiv, usher, that's also usher. Because you're not allowed to destroy kachim that are tamei on Yontiv. This is true even if you're going to feed it to an animal. It can't be consumed when it's kachim tameim on Yontiv. Because we know that you're not allowed to burn kachim on Yontiv. Don't say that it only means you're not allowed to burn it. Because you're lighting a fire for no reason. Because when it talks about the fact that you're not allowed to light oil, again, that's tamei on Yontiv, that is something that is litzorech. Because lighting a candle on Yontiv, that's a tzorech achila, that's something you need for eating. Normally it's mutter. Afilu hachi b'shemen sreifa alone. Nevertheless, by shemen sreifa, which again is shemen truma that's tamei, it's forbidden. V'u shemen truma shenitmeis, again shemen sreifa refers to shemen truma that became tamei. The gzeiras hakasavi shein kodshim tameim misbarim b'yontiv. It's a gzeiras hakasav. You're not allowed to consume. You can't destroy kodshim tameim on yontiv. Derachmana achshiva lahavarasan, because the Torah considers the destroying of these items important. Techsiv bo'eshi sarif. It says you got to burn it in fire. Hilkach malachi. Therefore, it's considered a malacha, and it's going to be a problem. And again, when it comes to truma tameya, that's the same thing as challah tameya. It's not allowed to be eaten. Of course, it cannot even be burned or given to an animal. Nothing can be done. Therefore, they said in the Mishnah, lo yezizim mimakomim. You're not allowed to move it at all. And the Gemara says, Leimu tanan stama delok Rabbi Shimon. Let's say that our Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya, as we learned in a Bryce, so Rabbi Shimon says, this is talking about on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon says you're allowed to cut up gourds in front of an animal on Shabbos. You're also allowed to cut up a nevela. Let's say you have an animal that dies, it became a nevela. You're allowed to cut it up in front of the dogs on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says, if it wasn't a nevela from before Shabbos, meaning if the animal died on Shabbos, then it's going to be usher. So presumably Rabbi Shimon is saying, even if the animal died on Shabbos, you're allowed to cut it up, it's not muksa. So therefore that seems to be against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, Lo yezizena mimakom. If the animal dies on Yontiv, you're not allowed to move it around. And so the Gemara says, Afilu tema Rabbi Shimon. You could even say that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Shimon. Mod Rabbi Shimon bebale chayim shemesu she'asurin. Rabbi Shimon admits if you have animals that are alive and they die, they're asur. Rashi will explain what that means. Rashi says, so we know the animal certainly died on Shabbos. That's clear from Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says if it didn't die from before Shabbos, it's asur. So therefore Rabbi Shimon seems to be saying, even if it dies on Shabbos, it's going to be mutter. So the Gemara then said, well, Rabbi Shimon says, the key over here is if you have an animal that was totally healthy at bein hashmashos, shemeisu b'yontiv shasur, and then if it dies on yontiv, it's asur. And when does Rabbi Shimon say it's permitted? B'misukenes, when the animal already going into Shabbos or yontiv is in danger of dying. So b'misukenes bein hashmashos, the dieti lavi lachil klav, and there already he has in mind that he's going to feed it to animals. He knows it's going to die. So that's where Rabbi Shimon said it's mutter. In other words, what the Gemara is answering is, the Gemara is saying that Rabbi Shimon holds it depends on the animal. If the animal is healthy going into Shabbos or Yontiv, then it dies, then even Rabbi Shimon would admit that it's going to be muksa. That's the explanation of Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah. And when Rabbi Shimon in the Bryce says that it's permitted, it's talking about an animal that was already misukenis. The person already knew was going to die, and therefore it's going to be permitted, even if it dies on Shabbos. But the Gemara continues, Hanicha lamar barameimar mishmei derova diamar mo dehoy Rabbi Shimon v'alechaim shemesu sha'asurin shapir. That's good according to the sheet of Mar barameimar in the name of Rava that says that Rabbi Shimon again admits that balechaim, when they're healthy and they die on Shabbos, it's asur. That's a good distinction. But according to the other opinion is again Mar Breder of Yosef in the name of Rava that says that Rabbi Shimon argues even in a situation where the animal is healthy and says it's mutter even over there. So Ma'ikal Memar, what are you going to say? How are you going to explain our Mishnah according to that shita? There is a shita that holds that Rabbi Shimon is matir under all circumstances. So why in our Mishnah is it going to be a problem? Is it going to be muksa? And so the Gemara answers, Tirgamo Zeiri explained our Mishnah is talking about a specific case. Bebemas Kodshim, our Mishnah is talking about an animal that's actually Kodshim. Rashi over here says, Bebehemas Kodshim, Sha'asura Behana, such an animal is Asur Behana, U'te'una Kavura, really you need to bury that animal. Ve'ena Niftis, it can't be redeemed. Deboy Hamoda, V'haracha, you need to evaluate the value, etc. Inami or, Ein Podin Kodshim Lahachil Klavim, maybe we hold over here, you're not allowed to redeem Kodshim just to take that Kodshim and feed it to the dogs. Even according to the one who says that on Yontiv you're allowed to redeem, lo parki law, here in this situation you're not allowed to do that. Hilkach lo chazia, therefore the point is that when it comes to Kodshim, you have a situation of an animal that's Kodshim that becomes an Avela, that's going to be a problem even according to Rabbi Shimon. There's nothing you can really do with that animal. And the Gemara says, Dekanami, we have a proof to this as well. Because what does our Mishnah say? It talks about the animal that became an Avela and Chala that became Tameh. So Ma Chala de Kadisha, just like Chala is something which is holy, Af Behema de Kadisha, so too the Behema we're talking about again a Behemas Kodshim. It was designated to be Kodshim, it was designated to be a Karban, and then it died, then it became an Avela. Such an animal, again, there's nothing you can really do with such an animal, and therefore that's why Rabbi Shimon says that it's muksa. But the Gemara says, but if that's the case, Elataima de Kadisha, but then we can make a diuk the other way. If the Mishnah is talking about an animal that's specifically Kodshim, so the only reason it's a problem is because it's a Behemas Kodshim. Hadechulin Sharia, but that would imply that if the animal was Chulin, it would be permitted. So that would imply that, again, according to Rabbi Shimon, it would be completely permitted when the animal dies on Yontiv when it's Chulin. So Hanichol Amar Breder Rav Yosef Mishmei de Rava. That works well according to Mar Breder Rav Yosef in the name of Rava. The Amar Cholakaya Rabbi Shimon Afa Balechaim Shemesu Shemutar and Shapir. Again, that opinion held that Rabbi Shimon says when you have an animal that's alive, even when it's totally healthy, and it dies on Shabbos or Yontiv, it's mutter. That works out very well because, again, in our Mishnah it's saying only if it's Kodshim it's a problem. If it's Chulin, it's fine. El Lamar Barameimer Mishmei de Rava Damar Moda Hoyer Rabbi Shimon Balechaim Shemesu Shasurin. But according to the other opinion, Mar Barameimer in the name of Rava that said that Rabbi Shimon admits when you have Balechaim, healthy animals, and they die, they're Asur. So Ma'ikol Ameimer, how is that opinion going to explain our Mishnah? Because our Mishnah implies it's mutter. It's only a problem in our Mishnah because it's Kodshim. And the Gemara says, no, that opinion is going to say, Hachav Ma'askinon. Here, what are we talking about? B'misukenes. The Mishnah is talking about an animal that's Kodshim that's also Misukenes. It's in danger of dying. So in that case, it's only a problem because it's Kodshim. V'divrei Hakol, again, it will go according to all opinions. It's only a problem because it's Kodshim, but in a case where it would be Chulin, it would be fine. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein nimnin ala behema lechatchila b'yontiv. You're not allowed to register for an animal lechatchila on Yontiv. The Gemara will explain exactly what that means. Avol nimnin oleh me erev Yontiv. But what you do is you register for the animal from erev Yontiv. V'shochten u'mechalken b'neim. They shech the animal and they divide it among the group. Rashi over here says, Avol shochet hu atavach below pisuk dam. What's happening over here is the And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein nimnin ala behema lechatchila b'yontiv. You're not allowed to register lechatchila for an animal on Yontiv. That's going to be explained in the Gemara. Avol nimnin oleh me erev Yontiv. But what you could do is you could register for the animal from before Yontiv. V'shochten, you then shech the animal. U'mechalken b'neim, and then they divide up the animal among the group. As Rashi over here says, Avol shochet hu atavach below pisuk damim. What happens is the shochet comes and he shechs it, but there's no arrangement of money of how much each person in the group is paying. U'mechalken then they divide the animal among the group. And the next day they can figure out how much money each person owes. In other words, the point is you're not allowed to set up the value and set up how much each person owes when dividing up this animal on Yontif. The Gemara explains, "My ein nimnin." What does it mean? You can't register. Amar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, "Ein poskin domim lechatchila ala be'evim b'yontiv." Like we said already, you're not allowed to set money up lechatchila on the animal on Yontiv. Rashi over here says, "Ein poskin domim demekach umemkar b'Shabbos uv'yontiv also b'Sefer Ezra." When it comes to purchasing, that's a problem on Shabbos and Yontiv, and therefore you're not allowed to make an arrangement and say, "Well, I'm going to owe a certain amount of money. I'm going to pay 2 sloim to take a certain portion of this animal." And the Gemara says, Hechi of it. So then what should the person do? In other words, the person is not allowed to be posek damim. So what's the alternative? As Rashi over here says, Hechi of it. The katani shochit hu mechalken beineim. It says you do the shchita, you divide it up. Hechi of it. Sheyedu l'machar kama hoisa shavel l'pisuk dameh. So what should they do in order to remember how much this thing was worth, in order to determine how much each person owes? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav answers, maybe shtei behemoths. What they do is you bring 2 animals in front. Uma'amidan zu etzel zu. You bring 2 animals in front of the group. You stand them next to each other. V'yomer zu kazu. You say this animal is the same as that animal. As Rashi over here explains, Mevi lehem beyontif shtei behemos shavas. You bring two animals that are identical. V'yomar ru'u shazu kazu. You say, look, this animal is the same as that. Ulamachar shamin asanosaris. And then the next day they'll evaluate how much the living animal is worth, and in that fashion they'll be able to determine how much the animal that they shechted was worth and how much each person owes. The Gemara says, Tanya nami hachi, we have a brayso like this as well. Lo yomar adam lechavera hareini imcha besela. A person can't say to his friend, I am with you a sela. I'm going to pay a sela's worth for this animal. Hareini imcha b'shtayim. I'll pay 2 seloim. As Rashi over here says, Hareini imcha nimna al behema zu besela. I want to register for this animal for 1 sela. V'hainu k'shmuel damar ein poskin lo damim b'yontiv. That's following Shmuel. You're not allowed to set up a certain amount of money on yontiv. You can't arrange for the purchase. Aval omer lo, but instead what he says to him is as follows. Hareini imcha lemechza v'lishlish v'lerevia. I'll be with you for half the animal, for a third of the animal, for a quarter of the animal. In other words, you do it according to the size of the animal, but you're not posik damim. You don't talk about how much money each person is contributing. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph.